Welcome, I'm Todd Robbins. July 30th, some horrible things happened on this day in the past. Here are a few of them. First off, 1863, middle of the Civil War, and at that time the president was Abraham Lincoln. We have this image of him as this kind of noble figure, larger than life, but he was a badass. He really was. Got to start splitting rails as a young man, hard manual labor. He was also a wrestler. That was one of his passions. And he would take on all comers and usually won. And as an example of his badassery, this day in 1863, he issued a special order, which was that for every black prisoner of the Confederate that was shot, a rebel prisoner that the Union was holding would be shot. He called it an eye for an eye order. That's extreme. Speaking of extreme, and you have to understand, politics were 180 degrees back in the 1860s. What happened on this day in 1866 is significant. The Democratic Party in those days was sort of Southern based and was for the Confederacy and things like that. The Republican Party was the Progressive Party at that time. As you see, it's basically 180 degrees, to what it is these days. And you have to remember that when I tell you that in 1866 in New Orleans, the Democratic government orders police to raid an integrated Republican Party meeting. They ended up killing 40 people and injuring 150. On this day, in 1914, though he had been reluctant to mobilize, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia finally gave the order for the army to get ready. He realized that World War I was coming. In speaking about his reluctance, he said, appealing for saner heads to rule the day, he said, think of the thousands and thousands of men who will be sent to their deaths. Little did he know, 4 years later, one of those deaths would be his own. This is an interesting day here in New York City, in the area here. It's 1916. German saboteurs blow up what was known as Black Tom Island. It was a man-made little island off of New Jersey in the harbor that was used as a munitions depot. And we were not in World War I at that time. That didn't come till a year later. And we were fairly neutral, though I don't think we supplied Germany. I think we cut Germany off from supplying them with arms. But we were arming Britain and France and Russia. And there was this huge shipment of ammunition, explosive bombs, shells, you name it, that was going to be shipped. The millions and millions of pounds of explosives were going to be shipped to Russia, and they were sitting there on a Black Tom Island. And a couple of German spies snuck upon the island, and they used a cigar bomb. They had these things that look like cigars, but they're actually filled with nitroglycerin, and they used it to blow up all that. It was the largest non-nuclear explosion in the history of the United States. It was so severe it shattered windows all throughout the Jersey area of the harbor, lower Manhattan. Buildings were severely damaged, and they had to evacuate Ellis Island because of the explosion. And of particular interest, it shook the Statue of Liberty and did damage to the arm. And from that day to this, you cannot go up into the arm and into the torch. It is closed off to the public because of the damage that happened on this day in 1916. Other bad things that happened besides Black Tom explosion. 1942, during World War II, the German SS kills 25,000 Jews in Minsk, Belarus. Another dark thing happened in July of 1945. On this day, the SS Indianapolis was sunk by the Japanese. What was significant about this are a couple of things. First off, the SS Indianapolis was on a secret mission, and that mission was to deliver parts of the atomic bomb that was to be dropped on Japan, and thus, as we know, brought an end to World War II. They delivered the vital parts, and so therefore this ship was on a secret mission, and no one knew it was on this mission, which led to this problem. It was coming back from having dropped off those parts of the atomic bomb when it was sunk. It went down in 12 minutes. There were 1,196 men aboard, and only 800 of them made it into the water, and they had to survive in the water for 4 days. It was shark-infested waters. And finally, after 4 days of dehydration and sunstroke and exhaustion, there were only 300 survivors. It was the worst naval disaster in the history of the United States. Again, the reason it took so long, and it was just a fluke of American plane flying over and seeing the debris. It's possible they all would have been lost had that plane not happened to spot that, because, again, it was on a secret mission. No one knew it was in the water. And on a slightly lighter note, in 2012, India's power grid went out and left over 300 million people without electricity, left 300 million people in India in the dark. And when the lights go out, there's not much else to do. Well, 9 months later from this date, there was a baby boom in India. On this day in 1831 was the birth of Helena Blavatsky, Blavatsky. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying Madame Blavatsky's name. She was a piece of work. She was an occultist and a writer and a con artist. She created a religion, theosophy, and it was all about making money. And when she took people's money and supporters, and then left and flew the coop, and then would land someone else and fleece other people and leave. And she was always one step ahead of them. Just a remarkable woman, to say the least. And finally, on this day, in 1975, James Hoffa disappears. Jimmy Hoffa. He was a union leader. I think it was outside of Detroit. He had dinner, got in his car, and was never seen again. He disappeared. And there have been countless theories as to what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. 7 years after this date, on the same day, July 30th, 1982, he was declared legally dead. But there's still rumors of where he ended up. The bridges, the construction projects that his body's in the cement, that he was hit by the mob. Who knows? What I find most interesting, and this is so quirky, is that we have so much mystery about him, and his middle name was Riddle, James Riddle Hoffa. Well, there you go, and there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy this video, by all means, I hope you'll like it and subscribe to the channel, and then hit the notification, that little bell. Hit that so that you'll be notified when the next video is unleashed. That is assuming you survive all the horrible things that will be happening to you on this day today. And if you do survive, I hope you come back here tomorrow and join me. And if you don't survive, well, I'll say nice things about you at your memorial service. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, there you go. Once again, I'm Todd Robbins, and good luck.